Monona City Council, Monday, November 3rd. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Kugel. Here. Alder Bernstein.
Here.
Alder Rademacher.
Here.
Alder Holmquist.
Here.
Alder Wood.
Here.
Alder DeBula is excused. Mayor Moore.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from October 20th?
So moved.
Second.
And I have a second from Teresa. Any changes, corrections, additions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The minutes carry. Don't believe we have any appearances tonight. Is there anyone here?
Online here quickly
Hmm?
here. I don't believe so.
Don't see anybody online. We have no public hearing. We have no consent agenda. That takes us to G1A, consideration of resolution 25-10-2837, approving exterior revisions to the existing precise implementation plan for the Bloom, put forth by the Director of Planning.
I'd move that we take this from the table.
Sorry.
That's good.
I move that we take this from the table.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
What does it mean to take something from the table?
Means
Allows us
to
to have
bring it
action
back
again.
on, we
tabled
set it aside, now we're saying
Got
we
it.
want it back.
Thank you.
Because we passed a motion to take it out of order.
Right.
And then decided we didn't want to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So,
So I
do I need to call?
favor
Okay,
that one. Yeah.
so since we have a motion and a second, let me call for the vote again. So all those in favor of taking it off the table, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is off the table. Okay, with that, Doug?
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the second read on the requested revisions to the existing precise implementation plan. The project here is the Bloom, a 98-unit mixed-use building that is on the corner of West Dean and Monona Drive. I can go into more details, but just high level, it was the accent siding. There was a change in installed materials versus the approved PIP. Different color there, and it was deemed to be a substantive change that had not received approval, that deviated from the precise implementation plan, and that has led it to come back here to council. It did go to the city's plan commission, who forwarded it to the council for consideration. Their motion did include that they believed that it was substantive, and recommended council review options, including repainting, replacing, or leaving in place. This evening, we're joined by a representative from the developer as well as the architect, or the architect group as well, and they have some materials here and some additional information to share as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you. We sent in an additional chart. It was a revision from a chart that we had shared last time that shows different options. We also gathered some additional information. You all had asked us to determine how much, if we removed material, how much we would be sending to a landfill. It's approximately 6,500 pounds that we would be sending. That includes the material itself plus fasteners and trim, the things that go along with it. Additionally, we determined, we came back with another option 5, that we've added to the chart as well. I'll quickly go through the first several options just as a reminder. The first option would be leave it in place, which would be our preference, but we're also offering option 2, which would be to paint the existing hardy material. Again, that would match color, but the texture wouldn't match what was shown in the image. A third option would be to remove the honeysuckle color that's installed and replace it with a different hardy color. Again, that will get you a different color, but not the different texture. Option 4, we're talking about removing the honeysuckle color and replacing it with another hardy product, but it's with a different finish, so it would have a different color and slightly different texture as well. And a fifth option that we are offering is that if we left the honeysuckle color in place through the warranty, when the warranty is up, we would replace it with the material that matches the originally approved PIP.
And that warranty is 25 years?
It's
50?
15 years.
15?
years, correct.
15 years.
So it would be before the life cycle of the product, which it's a long-term product, it's designed to be that way.
Mhm.
But the warranty would be 15 years, and then we'd replace it with a product that has an equal or greater warranty as well.
So before I open it up to others, just to clarify, so you're saying there's not an, I think I hear you saying that there's not an option at the same level of hardy product at a color that is, and texture that is closer to what was originally approved in the PIP.
That's correct.
There's no natural color.
Not
In
with
the
not with
higher
the
end product.
Not with the texture. It would be, and it would be a hardy product with a different finish on it. That finish would have a warranty as well, but it's not an out-of-the-box hardy color.
Okay. Okay. Questions?
I'll speak. My questions still seem to be similar to what we had 2 weeks ago, and it has more to do with the scope of the plan commission, being able to really look at the whole project as a whole and recommend what materials based on that, or to approve materials based on that. I don't see that as this body's area of expertise, so I would encourage us that we send it back to that group for approval of which one of the 5. And I know that's a group that is not to design projects for people, so if people put together what is the order in which that they're requesting is going to be likely the most beneficial.
Doug?
So just to make sure I understood that, so you're saying you would eliminate removing the siding from the equation and then ask Plan Commission to choose?
No, I would say, I'm not going to use the words just yet, but to deny here, to send it back to plan and have the applicant decide what is it that they want to do. And if they have an alternative or 1 or 2, that's better than 5, because the Plan Commission is not in the business of designing someone's project for them. It's for approving projects that come forward. But there are times that it's like, hang on, we have this plan and we have this color, and it might be like, boy, that does not fit well with the project. Here's our alternative. But they're not gonna design it for you and say, well, here's the color wheel, here's the color that we pick.
So just to clarify, Brian, you're also saying you're asking the applicant to provide 1 or 2 options beyond, no more than 2 options beyond that which they've already said they would prefer to do.
Yeah, because that group has already said pretty much no to that.
Right,
Um,
right. The Plan Commission has already said no to,
That they would likely not have approved the color, but
Right.
they felt like it should be brought to this group in case this group said, yeah, we're fine with it.
right. Right. And again, and yeah, so I think what Brian is also indicating is the sending it back to plan rather than this
Yeah.
body being in the business of
And I'll
choosing.
make a motion, but I'll wait for people to talk first.
Yeah.
and then-
Other thoughts, yeah.
Yeah.
Doug?
I guess I wouldn't want to delegate the decision on whether to tell them they have to take it off and put something else up. I just think, to me, that's too wasteful and, in all sorts of ways, makes the project less economic, and it's a bunch of good material getting sent to a landfill. So, short of, except for that, I don't have a problem with letting the Plan Commission decide it, but I'd want to set that parameter. But
set the parameter of keeping it or setting the parameter, are you saying that you think that there should be a recommendation back to plan from the, or you would
No,
advocate? No.
Personally, I would not, I wouldn't support or requiring them to take the material off. So I guess that would be saying it's, I'm okay with the way it is. So,
You're saying you're okay with it the way it is?
right. Well, I'm not really okay with what happened at all, but to me, it's sort of two bad options, and leaving it is, to me, less bad than the
Mhm.
other option.
Mhm. Others?
I agree with, excuse me, I can go all day without a cough and then I come here. I agree with what you've said, Alderwood. My big concern is just the precedent that it sets and how we as a community work with developers and how expectations of that relationship are set. I don't have a solution. I mean, are we to just make an example of this moment so that future incidences don't come up? It's difficult to say.
But if future instances came up that were not in accordance with the PIP, wouldn't we'd be in the same scenario and we'd have to
Mhm.
vote to accept an modification of the PIP?
Right, but I think
I would,
my point is I think it sends a message to others that says, you know, in Monona, if you just don't follow the PIP, you'll get your hands slapped, but you'll still be able to move forward without a consequence. Everybody drives by the building and they have a different opinion. I didn't notice it was different. Would I personally have picked every color? I don't know. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I don't think it's about what the building looks like. I think it's about what the relationship is between the city and the developers.
I guess
Rick?
what I'd like to do is second Brian's motion, and if it fails, we can look at other options.
I haven't just done,
he didn't make.
I haven't made
Made
it
it
yet, but I
officially
will
yet.
here shortly. I
Yeah.
think I can add in, I think what I'm hearing from Doug and Teresa a little bit, maybe some others, is the idea of there might be your primary option or a secondary option might be to keep the siding in place, but to add another top coat to it. So that might be one of the options that the applicant says, that's what we want to do. And the planning commission might choose it. The applicant might say, you know what? Actually, we don't think that's in our best interest, and we think removal of the product and putting something else up is our number one choice. I don't want us to decide for them what they believe is their best bet.
Well, I thought
Yeah,
I mean, their preference is not to change it.
right.
Their preference is to leave it as it is and
Mhm.
not paint it. So the preference is to do nothing. We already know that. If it goes back to plan, that option is off the table. It would be, well, what other options are there? Paint on top of it, or remove it and replace it? Or the fifth option, I suppose, is, the fifth option is part of option one, really.
Mhm.
Uh,
It's a combination.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate, like, Alderwood and others bringing up of like, hang on, that's a lot of material, a lot of wasted
Mhm.
material.
Mhm.
I agree with it. And if the developer might come forward and say, yeah, like, a top coat's gonna be our first choice, I definitely could see that as a preference from a sustainability standpoint of not throwing a bunch of it in good usable product away.
Although I would suspect that From a durability standpoint, it would not, because painting it would definitely necessitate more care
Yeah.
than leaving
Right.
it as is.
And
No.
chipped paint probably is gonna look,
Huh?
and the paint might chip. I don't know how well it would adhere to the surface.
Right.
So I'll move that we deny the request for the approval of the exterior revisions and refer it back to Plan Commission.
And I will second it.
So we have a motion to deny the request to keep the siding, is
Yeah.
what you're saying,
To keep the current color,
the current siding.
the request that's on the table tonight, to deny that, but then refer it back to Plan Commission.
So then Plan Commission could do whatever it wanted in its discretion, except for allow the status quo.
And it would be up to the applicant to present what it is that they are wanting to do.
Right. Which is the opposite of what Alderwood was suggesting.
Right, 'cause-
Right.
yeah.
So we have
Why,
a,
why would we not allow Plan Commission to accept the status quo?
they've already said they're not.
Because they've
Because
already
we've already
said
said
they
no.
don't want to.
Yeah.
So we're the only ones that can accept the status quo.
Mhm.
But Plan Commission could accept option,
Yeah.
the other options.
Right, the one that says leave it for now.
So we have a
Yes.
motion on the
15 years.
floor to deny
And refer back.
and refer it back to plan for one of the other options besides leaving the product, right?
Besides leaving the product with the current color.
Well,
Because they could approve current product, new color applied on top.
but to your point, Brian, the new, I just didn't pull it up in front of me now. The new option, keep it as it is, and then in 15 years, so that would be number 5, right? Plan Commission could choose that as well.
It could,
It's kind of like a hybrid.
it could. I highly doubt it, because
Okay.
they've already denied the current. So why would they approve it for 15 years?
Don't know. People change their minds. Don't know.
It's possible. I mean, this gives that opportunity for the Plan Commission to discuss that. If the applicant feels like that's their best bet, they can put that out as their first desired option.
Could I do, is it?
We have a
poss-
motion, we have a specific motion on the floor.
Right.
So if we're discussing that specific motion, that's, yeah.
So in order for me to decide, do you have the 2 different colors in front of you? What's
The-
on the building now
Correct.
and what would be put on the building?
I already have a second from Rick. Yeah.
So this is the building as it's installed.
As it looks right now, that
Correct.
is the shade of
Yep.
yellow that we're seeing? Yep.
Yes, yep, it's called
Yeah.
honeysuckle. What we'd be looking at to adjust it to, if it were the either option 4 or option 5, so replacing it with a hardy that is the wood tone texture would be one of these, which matches the color on the PIP.
Could you
Or
hold
is-
could you hold
Yep.
up the mustard color?
I sure can.
Okay. That's quite different than, that's beautiful. That says a lot right there. Thank you.
Okay. Any other, again, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Anything else about this particular motion? Before we take a vote on this motion. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
Abstentions? The motion carries. we are sending this back.
And we've held off on the agenda notice for the plan commission, so that way it'll be able to be for our very next plan commission. So there, no delay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That takes us to item number 1B, consideration of ordinance 1025-798, amending section 103-3 of the Monona Code of Ordinances to remove health inspector duties from the building inspector, city administrator. Is there any updates on this?
Well, we received no other questions. This is simply removing a section in the ordinance, just removing the reference to the health inspector duties. No other changes.
Move approval.
Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
I have a motion and a second. Any other questions on this one? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
It's an ordinance.
Oh, sorry, it's an ordinance. It's a roll call. Please call the roll.
Alder Bernstein.
Aye.
Alder Rademacher.
Aye.
Alder Holmquist.
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder Kugel.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries. And that takes us to item number C, consideration of resolution 25-10-2836, approving the 26 to 30 capital improvements program and the 2026 capital borrowing. Mark?
I'm sorry, it's just the capital budget.
Yes.
If it's okay, we're going to do just a quick presentation.
Yep.
Just for the updates with the budget amendments and how everything affects everything. So I don't have mine. So kind of the goal of the mayor's goal was to limit the impact on the property taxes. The goal was to keep the borrowing at $2.5 million, which we did, excluding utilities and TIF, and kind of limit equipment vehicle replacement to critical replacements only. If you could just go to the next one. So yeah, the capital budget's $5,716,000. I just passed out a new one with the summary of the budget amendment. So it goes from the 5,716,000. If the budget amendments are approved, they'll go to 8,037,000. So currently, right now, GO borrowing is at $2.5 million. Revenue bonds is 1.7. Majority of that is water and other revenue sources. A lot of that's TIF and also fund balance is part of that, makes up that difference. Just so you know, just kind of a couple things. Net new construction, come other factors. We talk about the overall expense of the city. Our net new construction is 1.3. They'll be talking about that at the next committee of the whole. Same with the referendum stuff. We'll kind of talk about that at the committee of the whole. We kind of talk about the sewer utilities and the water utilities. There is some stuff that we took in consideration. Right now, it's in the sewer utilities. We approved an 8% increase to the operating budget for, it's the operating expenditure for Madison Metro Sewer Station went up 8%. We just got a letter today from them. They said the range could go from up to 16% increase. That's their highest range. We budgeted 8% right now. But the highest range, they gave us a range this year. Usually they give us a number, and now they switched to ranges. So the highest range would be almost a 16% increase from last year.
Do you know when they will know that?
Which is, it will be based on the activity that happens in 2026, so what your user rates are, what the I&I ends up being.
Okay.
So they just kind of said, here's based on all the projections we have, the highest range would be a 16% increase to what we have. Other things, interest rates right now are just in general, this last year and the last couple of years. Unfortunately, they've been higher than what they have in the past, usually around 3% or even 2%, 2.5. Now they're right around 4.5 to 5%. That does have an impact on your interest expense and the amount of interest you're paying per year. You want to go to the next one? So just kind of talk about so going back again to the 2.5 was the goal. So based on what a current principal and interest, this is an estimate based on working with the financial advisor, what it would be using our current debt structure. We'd pay the total of 2.5 million is with principal and interest would be, I'm going to round here, $3.25 million. What's in the capital budget amendments, that would bring the borrowing to 3.8, or with principal and interest, $5,060,000, or an increase of 1.8 in principal and interest. If you approved every one of the budget amendments? If you go next. So just kind of everybody just kind of knows the overall tax to the taxpayers and the median home. So what the current debt service is, what that is you break out the portion what's operating, what's debt service on your current bill. 1,177 is related to your debt service. When you get say your property tax bill is $4,000 of the city's portion. And this is 1,177. So that would be the debt service portion, or $270 per $100,000 house. What's the recommendation is 2.5, $16 per 100,000, or it adds in another $75 or $76 per medium home. What happens if it's a 3.8? Kind of the breakdown impact. 3.8 is $23.14, or an increase of almost $7. I mean, almost $33. So as you can see, how that goes. The current property tax levy is 1.1, and you add in, if it was the 2.5, it'd be $1,234. If it's the 3.8, it's $1,267. Go to the next. Just so you know, we just recently got most of our other districts' property tax levies. Dane County right now is an estimate. They won't get that. Their board hasn't voted on theirs. I put a 3% in there just for. It's usually around 3 to 4% is what their increase is. Just kind of put that as an estimate. We just got Monona Groves. So as you can see, theirs is basically 2.9, almost $3 million increase. Madison Schools, we have a couple properties that are in the Madison School District. Madison College, we just received a 5% increase in the city of Monona. It's a 3.66. Majority of that is debt service increases. We did in the debt service, I don't know if you remember last year, we plugged debt service with a fund balance. We are going to plug in some of the debt service with fund balance. But there is also an increase now that we have to incorporate in there. So right now, projected, this is just an estimate. We don't have the Dane counties, and ours hasn't gone to the committee of the whole yet, or even to the city council. Right now, all the districts together, it's a $770 increase to a tax bill.
For a median home?
Yeah, for a median home.
Continue. Go ahead. Sorry.
And then next one.
I think that's it.
That was it, yeah.
Could you bring up the PowerPoint again?
Nope, okay, hold on.
And just, would that be okay, Mayor?
Yeah.
Go through the slides.
Yeah.
A few slides again.
Hold on here.
Oh, was the water rate one in there? That one didn't get in there, did it?
There you go. Who's up?
Just so I forgot, that one wasn't in there. There's the effect on the sewer utilities for 2026, as you're aware of. We did approve a 20% increase to the sewer utility rates effective August 1st. The Public Works Committee increased a 15% increase to the stormwater rates for the 2026 operating budget, so the 15% there. And with the water rates, just with all the capital borrowings from this year and probably next year, We're looking at doing a rate case, so should be a water rate increase there too, so that is common. So that kind of goes through why some of the stuff we moved back for the sewer utility was the effects on the sewer rates with that, but that's all I have. If you have a
Yep.
question.
Teresa, did you have a particular slide you wanted?
Yeah,
or-
Mark, I can't recall the number of the slide, but if you could just advance, let's see. It may have been this one here, yeah. So, the two blue bullet points, the top is what was presented to the council.
Yeah, the 2.5
The second
borrowing.
bullet point is all of the amendments, if every single amendment passes.
Correct.
3.8.
Okay, and then could you go to the next slide, please? All right, the top blue bullet point is $270 per $100,000. And then the lower, an additional $16 per, if every single amendment passes.
No.
No.
it's Just the mayor's
Just the
recommended.
mayor.
This
So
is just the
version of
mayor's.
top
recom-
bullet point is what your current debt service.
Oh,
level
yeah, I'm
is.
sorry, 2026. The bottom bullet point is what the mayor's
Yeah.
recommending this
So you
year, I'm
kind of
sorry.
add that in.
And then
Oh,
here's,
could you go back? Oh,
well, so this one just has the, plus the amendments.
got it. So what the mayor has recommended would be $16 per 100,000.
Mhm.
And if all the amendments pass, we would add an additional 23 on
Mhm.
top of that,
Total of 23.
total of 23.
Per
If
100,000.
every,
$6.
if every single amendment passes,
Yeah.
a difference of $6
Per $100,000.
per $100,000,
So the
yes.
medium house would be $108.
Yes.
Or
So that's
33.
what the next
Yes.
column over.
Just to make sure I understand,
That's fine.
$108 versus $75 is what we're talking about.
For medium home, yes.
For median rate,
Correct.
so like me and all my neighbors. Okay,
Yes.
so, all right. You can go on to the next slide, thanks, Neil. Was there any more? Okay, that just broke down the school district, okay, yeah.
And that was last slide.
That was the last slide, okay, thank you so much.
Any other questions of Mark? Or about these slides? Okay.
So, just so everybody knows, I did pass out, there was a change, summary sheet, there's two little, and then Amendment 1 has changed, and just tweaked it a little bit because of some further information we received. So what's the original pact has changed to what we just put in front of you, just when we start talking here.
Okay. So, with that, the way we will be doing this is by taking one amendment at a time. And then, obviously, for further discussion, as needed, and then a vote. And because it's frankly a little more challenging for me to catch whose voices, I'm going to ask Aline to do a roll call on every single one of the amendments, just in case it's close. So with that.
We need a main motion first.
Right.
Okay.
So with that, like a main motion, first, I need a motion and a second to approve the capital CIP plan for 2026.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Great. We don't approve that, we wait to the amendment. So that takes us to page number. Those of us that are on the computer.
31
Gotta
there.
get to the- Sorry, what page?
30.
30.
And it's the replacement page. Right.
All right. So first one up is related to the Nichols Road design. So do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Brian is seconding for discussion. Okay.
Wasn't there another slide?
Yep, I have it fired it up right now.
Okay.
Laura.
So just as a, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, certainly, I know Brad is here, and so is Mark, in terms of answering any specific questions, but thank you, Alder Bernstein, for your question. That was actually a great question. You notice the 65-35 did not exactly match on the grant project. That's because the city costs actually include design costs, which is 100% us. So not quite. The construction is 65-35. But I think in terms of staff's kind of overview and discussing this morning, kind of just wanted to summarize the proposed grant project as really being, the overall cost with 1.6 million. City costs about 825,000 of that, compared to just more of a basic, more of a maintenance repair work at $532,000. The $293,000 difference is essentially to kind of add the specific pedestrian improvements that are associated with the grant project. So that's an off-street path, realignment of the intersection are the two main aspects of that particular project. So if you have specific questions on that, Brad is certainly here available to answer questions on those. In regards to financial, Mark is also available.
Ryan?
Well, and Doug had his hand raised, and he might
Oh,
have
sorry.
something more pertinent than I do.
Okay.
Well, I was gonna ask Brad a question, so
Oh,
maybe
boy.
you wanna go ahead.
Well, then I'll go ahead. Brad, if I remember from 2 weeks ago, if I took away what you were telling me, is if this project was not done this year and came back next year as part of the capital project, we would have to reapply for funds, but the same funds would be available to do the grant project column? Do I have that correct?
I don't believe so, because if we don't approve the amendment, then those funds go back into the pot, right? The ones that we have approved for this year for design?
If you don't approve, they go back into, they're not in there right now, the amendment. Oh, if you don't approve the amendment.
Yeah, so we have approved funding for 2025 for design. And we've only spent so much. And the remainder of it, if we did not keep it in 2026, we would not have any money to do design in 2026. We would then be off our DOT schedule for submittals to bid the project late 2028, constructed in 2029.
Okay.
So
And if I understand your reasoning there, if we didn't approve this amendment, but we made a current or a future design amendment to allow those funds that we already have set aside to allow design, because that's 100% on us, not on the grant. And if we did that in 2026, we would then still be eligible for
27.
grant in the 27 budget?
we would not meet our DOT schedule. So we have to do design in 2026.
Yep, so I'll
So-
try it again.
I thought I heard exactly the opposite of that, so please do try
Yeah,
again,
I'll
'cause I
try
thought
again.
You said exactly the opposite of that.
So let's say we amended this amendment to only include city design to allow you to continue to do design work in 2026. But then did the full project in the 27 budget, would we still have access to the grant money?
Yes, but we need to keep the funding we currently have approved
Yep,
and borrowed for
yep,
and roll it into 2026.
correct.
But we'll hit a stop date in 2026 where the funds will run out and we're done, and then we'll have to go back to the capital budget
Yep.
cycle and request additional funds for 2027.
Yep.
That is correct.
I do think what you're asking though, so when we did the budget, since we cut nickels, we had $109,000 that we had left over.
Yep,
So we did take 100,000 of that to reduce the capital borrowing.
yep.
So we would have to,
reinstate that.
we just really have to
Yeah.
reinstate the 100,000.
Yep.
I think
But I just want to make sure, like, we can take advantage of the grant, even if we delayed a year, as long as we make that adjustment for the 109,000 or whatever.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so that's when I said, I thought you said just the opposite. It was that delaying the design a year, should we want to do Nichols, which I think is a separate question, but, this project, but if we delay the design for a year, it doesn't have an impact on the larger grant.
It does not.
It does not have an impact on the larger
Correct.
grant. It only impacts our internal budget
Yeah.
for design.
Yes, but we still have to have funding in 2026 to do design. Because we will not meet our DOT windows for submittals of the PS&E documentation, and other environmental documents, plan review, various other things.
But don't we already have some money?
That's the 100,000
Right.
we took and we moved it, so we'd have to put it back in.
Right.
But, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you said last time we could delay it to 27. That's right.
That's why I'm confused too.
Yeah.
Because you said we could delay the design until 27 last time.
We
And
can
now you're
get,
saying we can't.
we can get some design work done in 27. I don't know if we can get the whole project done in 2027.
But if we do, so if we take the 100,000 in savings and use that to finish in 2026, then would we be able to finish the design in 27 and still build it in 29?
Yes, that is correct. Yep.
Right.
So we have to get the bulk of design done with the $100,000 that we had in 2026. And then whatever remains, finish up in 2027 and submit our documentation to the DOT.
Just for clarity around this slide as well, my understanding when we discussed this project initially was that there would be approximately just under $1 million of city funds in a combination of design and construction. That's assuming that we, obviously have the grant, that it was about $1 million of city funds. And my understanding is that, and so when I chose to, just again for clarity, when I chose to remove it, it was in part because I felt like this was a nice to have, potentially nice to have thing, as opposed to most of the other capital items in a budget, which are, man, we gotta do this. Since that time, and again, not, of course, understand that eventually, as I think Dan pointed out the last time as well, or Brad at both, eventually we will have to repave this section of, could be 3 or 4 years down the road, probably similar trajectory. But anyway, to me, it seemed like a nice to have thing, and since that time, and because we don't, but it's not really a safety thing.
Well, I disagree, and I guess I would, as the person making the amendment, usually we let that person speak to the merits of it first.
Okay, I was just gonna speak to what I learned from our public safety personnel, but feel free. I was just explaining where I was coming from in terms of my initial decision.
Right.
But feel free.
Yeah. Well, I think there are safety improvements in a couple ways. One is to improvements at the main thing would be improving the realignment at Schluter and Nichols, which if you travel through there, it's an odd intersection. It's really long and skewed, and this project would tighten that up, which makes it safer for pedestrians. They have less distance to travel. But, and in addition, I think, having wider pedestrian paths, I guess, is maybe a little safety benefit during, say, the festival, but that's fairly limited. I think it's more to make it, to enhance the pedestrian use of the corridor. And I guess I look at it as the city cost construction and design together is $825. This, doing the project where we get the full street reconstruction as well as those other improvements versus $532,000 for basically a mill and overlay, as I understand it, with some spot improvements along the way. So it's about, it's $290,000 difference, but basically you just get the same road rebuilt and nothing else changes. And to me, that's kind of why the federal funding, why we got it, was because we said we were going to do these pedestrian enhancements and some safety improvements, mainly the pedestrian enhancements. That's why the MPO gave us the money. So I think we get a lot better product. Granted, it's for more money, but I think, the street will be completely rebuilt, so that's should last longer than even a full depth replacement.
Teresa?
I agree with everything Alderwood just said. I also wonder, it feels to me like, do we run a risk of, we don't even know what's going to become of the city hall building, the city campus, right? That's sort of like that big unknown. And I wonder, is it possible that we would make these repairs to Nichols Road only later to be in a position where we would need to rip them up again?
I think Brad can, go ahead, you addressed it last time, I think.
Yeah, so there wouldn't really be a need outside of utility improvements to rip into the road. When you're talking about amending or revising how curb and gutter is aligned or whatever, you can cut the curb and you can add curb heads back in without truly affecting the pavement in the street. If for some reason we went in the future, the way that we do our right-of-way program, we would require full lane patches in the roadway. And it would be full depth if it was a utility install, so like a new water line or a sanitary line or storm sewer. So the impact to the greater roadway, not really, only in spots if needed. So driveway entrances or otherwise, those can really be cut in without any major issues, like major cut-ins to the roadway that's just at the curb. So I don't foresee, depending on the scale of what happens on city campus, the requirement to move curb in the future, the road's pretty much going to stay where it is, I would assume. So I don't think that the city will have to push curb out or do something with the curb line to actually adjust it, other than put it back in place. So, and I'm not really sure what, future plans truly would look like for Civic Campus. I know that there's been talk about more planning, kind of a broader scope. It's kind of staging it out, because there's a lot of city campus buildings that need improvements, not just City Hall, right? That's been the focus, but, so. And then it'd be like in any other scenario, you have a old building, you have an existing street gets put in, 5 years later, somebody comes in and tears down a building and puts in a new building. They design it to meet the street, right? So that's their job, you know, as architects and engineers. So let's say we have a new parking lot layout or something, we would cut the curb, design it to fit the street, adjust driveway entrances, those types of things. In this case, our water line does come off of Nichols Road, but if we were to redo the building, we could just as easily bring it off of Schluter Road. So we wouldn't be, you know, we wouldn't be into Nichols Road for any reason if that's the case. The community center comes off of Nichols Road, but the water main is behind the curb. It's actually under the sidewalk area, even farther out into, it actually goes through the community center parking lot, so if we were to adjust the water main or put a new water service in for a new pool or community center or what have you, you wouldn't have to touch the road there either.
There would be some cost, we just don't know what that number would be. I mean, there's gonna be cost. When you do that, you're gonna have a lot of wear and tear on the road too, from a brand new road, and you're gonna be tearing up some stuff. Like you said, we have to go back and repatch it. Usually it'd be a developer, it's gonna be us paying for that cost, so. There's gonna be some cost. I don't know what that cost number is gonna be, but there will be a cost.
Teresa?
Brad, can you speak to the, on the left column here on the slide, the second red bullet point, the pedestrian improvements? Can you just speak a little bit to that, what that would look like?
Yeah, so the planned improvements for the grant project were a 10-foot off-street bike path, bike and ped. We would move the southern curb line out into the roadway, skinny the roadway up. The bike lanes that are out there, they're not truly designated. They're not, we don't have striping on them to designate them. And we don't have bike route signs on them, but those lanes would be gone, and so we would move peds and bikes off onto this shared use path on the south side. I know that Jake has long-term plans for the southern half of Winnequa Park for potential additional ped bike pathways. There's also a potential to add a ped bike path to Maywood Park that would actually link to Nichols Road bike path. So there's a piece of sliver of city property that actually goes between the houses and the school that a path can fit in. So if that was the case, then you'd have a more comprehensive approach to ped and bike infrastructure in the civic campus.
And getting kids to school.
It would be part of their walk zone as well, the school's walk zone, yeah, safe routes to school.
Looking at strange detail of the grant program, really that's why I think we talked about highlighting the pedestrian improvements. Majority of what the grant is covering, it's not really covering the road. It's covering all the pedestrian improvements for the bike path, all the sidewalk that needs to be put back in. So really, if you add up what the cost for just the path, and you add in the cost mobilization, everything that's allocated, majority of that grant is for that. It's not really for the road per se, it's really just for the path. I mean, there's some, would cover some of the road stuff. Majority of that grant is for the pedestrian pathways. If you add up the cost based on what Strand provided me.
It's a little misleading, and participating costs include road bed, pavement, curb and gutter. They pay for everything, it's just, there's additional cost for pathway.
I
I think if you just netted it out though.
Yeah,
but
sure.
it's
Yeah, if you net it out by itself, majority of the grant money is covering.
But
that.
I think that does include, it's listed as 2 bullets, but arguably, I think to Alderwood's point, the intersection realignment is,
Yep.
it's a traffic flow safety issue, but it's also a pedestrian safety improvement.
That's correct, yeah, the plan, preliminary plans, as they are right now, designed, would shrink and move the pedestrian crossing from that skewed, angled crossing where it's at right now to a 34-foot crossing right on top of the hill, so pedestrians would be at the crest of the hill
With better visibility.
as opposed to just slightly down the hill, which
Yeah.
is just the way that it lines up today.
Yeah. Is there just a ballpark or even a better estimate on the number of, the safe routes to school theme? Is there just sort of an understanding of how many families would be affected or how many?
I don't have those numbers or anything like that, no. I don't know if the school has something like that when they do their school walk zone studies. All I know is that the walk zone for Winnequa School ends at Nichols Road as it heads south, so it doesn't go anywhere beyond that. It would require intersection improvements at Maywood Road and Schluter Road and Healy Lane, most likely.
The walk zone ends at Nichols Road.
Yeah.
So anyone south of Nichols Road does not
Would
have to
be,
walk to
would
school
be eligible for busing
Busing.
services, yeah.
because there is no infrastructure or just because of the
There,
distance?
yeah, it's because of the
Or both.
infrastructure. That's what the sheriff's department looks at when they do their assessments.
Got it. So improving pedestrian safety could help more families
Yeah,
walk to school, avoid the lines at the school, the whole thing.
if they chose to let their
If they
kids.
chose to do that, of course. Yeah. All right.
So I have a question about what's listed in the sheet that was originally passed out last time by Mark. That has figures for real estate acquisition services and real estate purchase. What is that piece of it?
What's that?
There's a listing here that says real estate acquisition services 50,000 and real estate purchase 25,000 is part of the overall project. I'm wondering where those,
So there's.
what are we purchasing?
Those are placeholders. They're just in case, but they wanted them in there because the review process with the DOT is quite burdensome and costs a lot for real estate acquisitions. The only acquisitions we would need to make in any case that they've come up with so far
Yeah.
is purchasing of park property
Mm-hmm.
and purchasing of library property.
What was that second?
Library property, like up here on the corner. Because you have to adjust this sidewalk is very steep up here. And to make the ramp ADA compliant, we would have to do some grading at the corner of the intersection, which may come back onto library property.
Okay.
So we would be purchasing from ourselves. What we would like to do is get any acquisitions or CSMs done separate of the DOT process
Mm-hmm.
and cut this number in like a quarter of it.
Do it ahead of time.
Yep, do it ahead of time, yes, yeah.
So, Brian?
Maybe go to Rachel first, because
Oh,
my
sorry.
question's gonna be a
Rachel.
motion-like thing.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify one thing, that what we're talking about here, improvements to Nichols School wouldn't improve pedestrian safe school walk paths because Nichols is already included in that zone. It would be the continuation of whatever is done on Nichols if it went on to connect Maywood Park and Winnequa
Yes,
Park.
that is correct. So if Winnequa Park saw improvements, if the intersection at Maywood had pedestrian and bike improvements, like a four-way stop or something along those lines that controls flow of traffic in all directions, and if there was a pathway through Maywood Road, or if there was a sidewalk on Maywood Street, that would allow the walk zone to be stretched.
Okay.
And then you just.
Yes.
One other thing, I was curious what you were going to say, safety related about that you had talked with our public safety.
Yeah, in fact, I was just going to ask the chief if you'd be game to come up, because we did have discussions about, since obviously safety may or may not be part of this. Thanks.
Take it away.
Floor is yours.
Oh, okay. So when asked about, that particular intersection, what I relayed was that there's no data that I have to show that, and again, there's crash data, citation data, to show that that is a safety priority for us, although I would agree that that's not a perfect intersection, right? And we have, in my opinion, as I relate to the mayor, there are other safety priorities based on sort of our response and in our crash data that I would, if asked, urge her to focus on. So I'm not necessarily saying that this wouldn't be great to square off our intersections. There's probably several of those in the city that I can point at. And there are tremendous, as we know, tremendous amount of kids that use this intersection. I just don't have the data really to back up when asked directly if this is a dangerous quote-unquote intersection. I don't have the data to back that up.
Yeah, Brian?
Procedurally, if I'm interested in making an amendment to this amendment to take the $100,000 back out of the savings and to realign it, but to not approve the other items until 2027, would I do that as an amendment to the amendment? Or would we wait to vote on this amendment and then propose that amendment?
The latter.
Yeah, I was going to say
So
the
keep it
second
clean
one.
and then do a
Yeah.
second? Okay.
Okay. Any other comments, thoughts before we vote on this particular one? Okay, so could we restate the amendment that is on the floor currently before we take a vote? Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
It's in the handout.
This one.
I just thought.
Well, I didn't make the motion or the second, so maybe Doug.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
It's
made
an
the second.
amendment to include $151,750 for Nichols Road design.
Right, and that's what's on the floor now. So again, I'd like, could we take a roll call, please? Take a vote via roll call.
I'm sorry, could I ask you to repeat that, please? What are we,
It's an amendment to include $151,750 for the Nichols Road street design.
as opposed to what? Alder
Just that.
Holmquist
Now,
just
that's all
said?
we're voting on right now.
Right,
We're just voting on the original amendment.
okay.
The original addition to.
Yep.
Okay, so if the clerk could please call the roll.
Alder Rademacher,
No.
Alder Holmquist,
No.
Alder Wood,
Aye.
Alder Kugel,
Nay.
Alder Bernstein.
Nay.
Thank you. The motion is defeated. Do you have another?
Yeah,
Yes.
can I make a motion to amend the capital budget to take the $100,000 that was set aside for savings in the capital improvement and reinstate it for the design of the Nichols Road design for 2026 to allow us to continue down that path to secure for 2027 and beyond.
Second.
I have a motion and a second discussion on this particular item. Rachel?
So this would still increase capital borrowing by 100,000 because that was reallocated somewhere else.
Yes.
And it would allow us to keep plugging away with the project. but with a slight delay, was kind of the intention.
Any other questions on this particular? Okay. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Holmquist,
Aye.
Alder Wood,
Aye.
Alder DeCool, not here, Alder Kugel,
Nay.
Alder Bernstein,
Aye.
Alder Brandmeier.
Aye.
Motion carries. That takes us to, my computer just died, so I don't have it.
No.
Number 2 is the, Oneida Park.
Ah, the Oneida Park.
And I'll withdraw this amendment.
Okay. Brian's withdrawing the amendment. And that takes the next one, sorry, my computer is.
Southtown Engineering.
Southtown Engineering. Southtown Engineering?
I'll remove this amendment as well, since it's going to be moved to 2027 when there's TIF money available.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have asked on the,
Yeah.
is the Oneida Park Sewer Lift Station, is it in 27?
28.
28? Okay. Thank
It's in
you.
there somewhere.
Okay.
Dan's writing it down, it's in 28. No.
Yeah.
It's just when I don't play the computer the way you do, it just died.
I
You
know.
I had to get back in.
Southtown's, next one, the plow truck and leaf vac.
The plow truck and leaf vac is next. Do I have a motion?
I'll move the amendment to add $530,000 for a plow truck and leaf vac replacement multi-purpose truck.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second and a motion. Discussion. No discussion.
I don't have anything to add except what
Yeah.
was last time.
Yeah, we kind of said it last time. I've kind of waffled back and forth on this, but I really do think it's something we should do. It sets up our fleet to be in the direction that we want it to be, to ultimately reduce vehicles, to get better use out of the vehicles we have. I know it adds spending, but not much, and it saves spending down the road.
Dan, can I ask a question about this one? So, as you know, I'm in favor of this. I was just suggesting that we not do it for another year. But I have a question specifically about what you're including and what you're not including, which is to say, my understanding is that the current plows are also the salt spreaders. And with the new rig, you're only including the plow and the leaf vac is the two attachments that you would get at this juncture, which seems to me that would leave you absent of a salt spreader. No?
The new truck would come with a V-Box salt holder.
Okay.
What we don't get is a dump body. So we will have salting equipment on the new truck as an attachment with plows.
Okay, so there isn't so you still have the ability to be plowing and salting at the same time?
Yes,
And you get the leaf vac?
yes.
And my second question relates to, when I look at the two vehicles that this is to replace, again, going to my belief that the rating system needs to be reviewed, has nothing to do with, you guys followed the rating system that we have. I'm not, I'm not in any way saying that the staff has done anything different. I'm suggesting that our rating system hasn't been changed in 10 or 15 years. So, but looking at that rating system, both vehicles have very low mileage, They're older vehicles. It's the curse of our vehicles where all of the points are coming, or the majority of the points are coming, not for maintenance, not for mileage, not for reliability. They're coming from purely the age of the vehicle. And in fact, both of these vehicles have, the ones that you want to replace, have low mileage, with the exception being the VAC itself, which has been problematic on one of the two vehicles, which way above and beyond normal maintenance. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, the reason why both trucks have low miles is because they're used only for a few months out of the year.
Right.
The driver is the age, but there's also other components that go into the points rating system that indicates when it comes up for replacement. What we don't have included in those inspection sheets is the amount of hours accounted for by the mechanic fixing the equipment. So you have parts dollars that are into that equation, but what we don't have put into the program is our mechanics' actual hours for maintenance on those vehicles. So if we were to add that in, the maintenance dollars invested through the years would be higher.
Right.
We don't have that added in there.
Sure, but at the same time, you, in the rating system, you reflected them both being reliable vehicles. You didn't say, they're
reliable
unlike the fire
reliable because of
equipment
our
that we
mechanic.
all know is a lemon, right? You did that in the rating, you reflected them being a reliable vehicle, except for the fact that the VAC itself is a problem.
Of course. Yeah,
Right.
they're reliable because of our mechanic and his ability to
Right.
maintain the equipment.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Rachel?
And I apologize if this was discussed last week, I don't know that I heard it. The new multi-purpose truck, so the 530,000 covers all of it, the chassis that's convertible and all the attachments. Does the is there like a known history of how well those stand up? Like, do we know any other local cities or municipalities that use them? And does our mechanic have any experience with those?
So the hook truck chassis is used heavily in the private industry, mainly by garbage disposal companies. There are municipalities that also use hook trucks, and they're becoming more popular in municipalities just because of the efficiencies they offer, the various attachments. Verona is a local municipality that uses the hook truck. As far as the maintenance goes, it's pretty straightforward. All the dump truck chassis, the leaf truck chassis, garbage truck chassis, those are all kind of pretty universal. Our mechanic, aside from warranty work, would be able to complete maintenance on the truck.
Other questions, comments? Doug?
Dan, would you be able to replace either the plow truck or the leaf vac if we bought this? Would you be able to sell them?
Like I mentioned previously, until we get a second chassis, I think that would be the time, at least for the leaf vac truck for sure. But the snowplow that would be due to be replaced, we could sell that once we get the new truck in with the attachments and salting equipment. But it would, the leaf vac truck would be the one I would hold on to until we get a second chassis.
Do we know what the value of that will be?
Of the leaf vac?
No, you're saying you would sell the plow truck.
Oh, the
right
plow
away.
truck?
Yeah.
I would put it somewhere, and this is just strictly off the top of my head, somewhere between probably 25 and 45,000. I honestly don't know.
Yeah, okay. And then I had a question for Mark. Would any, since it's a leaf vac, would any of it be eligible to be paid by the storm sewer utility?
By the storm? It could. Our stormwater utility is kind of at its max for expenditures. I mean, it's just, like you said, a 15% increase this year. We just did a 15%. So we're at 30% increase in our stormwater rates, and every dollar goes into is basically increasing the rates. So I mean, we can put a little bit in there.
All right.
But I would not recommend it.
Actually, I have a question off of Doug's question. So if you're saying out of the two vehicles that we would be replacing, the vehicle that you would have to hang on to is the vehicle that's least reliable because of the VAC.
Absolutely. And that's a customer service related response. We have 3 trucks, and when a truck goes down, everybody knows it goes down.
Yep.
So the issue there is when we move to the initial hook truck, if that chassis goes down for some reason or other,
Right.
then the leaf vac is taken out of the system. So then we would be down to 2 leaf vacs. If we keep the leaf vac that's due to be replaced, if we keep it on hand as a backup, if that new truck goes down for some reason, we have the ability to bring a 3rd truck back in. When we buy our 2nd chassis, then we would be able to move forward and sell those leaf vac trucks.
Right. So do you have any idea since the piece that is most problematic is now the piece I'm learning, which I understand why, but is the piece that we would end up hanging on to. Do you have any idea what it would cost to just get a new leaf vac for the chassis that we have, since that's the problem piece?
About 140,000,
140,000.
I believe.
So for all intents and purposes, we could spend 140,000 and have what amounts to a.
Please don't put
Okay.
stock in that. I mean,
Okay.
you asked a question that I've
Yeah.
never been asked before to.
I know.
Take a component off a chassis and put a new one on. I don't know what modifications would need to be done to the chassis.
Okay.
I'm just giving you a potential upfit price.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate that. And I'm not referencing as it relates to now. I'm just thinking if we have to hang on to it rather than have it sit and not be in use, when we could use 4 potentially, if in fact this passes, or at least be more available than you think it might be because the VAC itself is the problem.
I mean, that is very true that, if we have a 4th one sitting in the garage.
Right.
And we have somebody to drive it.
Right.
To keep the program going.
Right.
I'd say we put a person in there and get it out on the streets to help out.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on this particular? Yeah.
Just curious, Dan, I don't think these hook trucks can be used as street sweepers, correct? The street sweeper is a completely different animal.
Right,
Yeah.
I have not seen any outfit
Yeah.
packages for that.
That's
Okay. Any other questions on this one? Could the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder Kugel.
Aye.
Alder Bernstein.
Aye.
Alder Rademacher.
Aye.
Alder Holmquist.
Aye.
That takes us to,
Street maintenance?
yeah, Bridge and Street Maintenance.
I'll move approval.
Do I have a second?
A second.
I've got a second from Brian.
So this would just go back, would add 100,000 to that street, bridge and street maintenance line, which would be more in line with what we have historically funded it at.
Okay. Other discussion? I would just point out that the reason why Mark and I made the determination to cut it back was because we're investing separately in the last bridge that we're doing. It's the last, because we've been redoing our bridges. We have the biggest separate investment in a major street in Tony Watha already on the docket that we've had in years. And we also invested through this budget significantly in Wallace, which has been a perpetual problem. And Public Works hasn't always utilized all 300,000 for roads, so we thought just paring back for 1 year would not impact our otherwise phenomenal streets significantly. Okay. Could you
Question.
please call the roll?
I have
Yeah.
a question.
Yeah.
To your comment about how Public Works has not always used all of the funds allocated,
Mhm.
are you suggesting that currently there is a reserve amount?
No, just that Dan, to his credit, has always
Yeah.
budgeted very conservatively, and so it's not unusual for him
Sure.
to deliver under budget. And when he's done that, there's been other things that we've used the funds for.
Yeah.
That he has used the funds for.
Other street-related things, that's
Yes.
Other what?
street-related.
Well,
Yeah.
plus I believe the balances that are left over at the end of the year,
Or swept back
have-
into the general fund.
right.
Yeah, because when we talked, my impression was if you got later in the year, there was some money left, there were always some projects that you
Right.
could fill it.
This year's a prime example. We've done, we've had the chip seal, we've had the mill and overlay. We were able to add another street into the mill and overlay. We've recently brought in Farner to do more infrared heat patching. I think we're probably right about 16,000 in balance on that line item right now.
Mark?
I would look at, if you're looking to approve this amendment, to maybe thinking about maybe only adding 70,000. We did have a project last year. We budgeted 100,000 for Winnacore Road, a full depth replacement too. It only came in at 30,000, I believe, roughly, so there's 70,000 left over there. So it would not be used in borrowed funds, so you could just carry that over. I mean, you can still do the extra 30, but that's something to look at. Again, we borrowed 100,000. We only needed 30 for that project.
That's true. Yeah, when we put in the application, it was shortly after COVID when bid prices were high. Prices were high across the board for everything in materials. There was an uncertainty in the market for materials. So I think the quoted price for full depth replacement, some roadbed repairs, a formal project manual provided through Strand. That's what the estimate came to. I lumped that project in with my other mill and overlay work this year. Wrote the specs into the manual myself. Strand provided the typical sections. We got really good bid prices. So, plus we're getting an LRIP road grant for it too. So we're gonna come pretty close to a wash on that project. So anything that's left over is is available, you know, for next year. So-
Okay. So,
So,
yeah.
how would we, so you're saying, so if we had a different amendment that said, directed those leftover funds from the Winnequa Road, you said?
It just carried, it's basically, would go to fund balance, so it's basically $70,000 worth of fund balance in the end. I mean, the project
Right, but if
completed.
Which
in
could-
order to make sure that it didn't just get spent on something else, we could say that it goes to this.
Yes.
As a separate amendment even, right? As opposed to, we would just turn this amendment down and then go
Yeah.
for a new amendment that would say directing the 70 left over. Okay.
Yeah. Or I could withdraw it.
Or you could withdraw it,
Yeah.
right.
It'll go faster.
I'll withdraw it if the second.
Okay.
Whoever that was.
Okay, so,
Uh,
who was the second on that?
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
I don't know if we should name the dollar figure right now because the bills, there's other bills coming in for that.
Okay,
So I think whatever is left, once the bills are paid,
okay.
I don't know if you need a dollar figure other than what the end result is.
We should put a dollar figure on there, because I think we're also getting grant money outside of it too, so. Do you think it's more like that? You said we wouldn't be that, I mean,
Well, we need to receive Strand's bill yet,
yeah, which is probably like 5,000 or so.
somewhere in that range. So you're thinking 65?
65, I guess.
Okay.
Okay, so
So
you're withdrawing.
I'll move that we increase this line by 35,000 out of the GO borrowing and direct that the leftover funds from Winnequa Road be direct to this line.
Second, or Rick?
Okay. Any other discussion on this one? Please call the roll.
Alder Kugel? Alder Bernstein?
Aye.
Alder Rademacher?
Aye.
Alder Humquist?
Aye.
Alder Wood?
Aye.
Okay. It either takes us to the front loader or the Colorado.
Chevy
right?
Colorado here.
Colorado. Okay, next up is the Chevy Colorado. Whoever, do we have a motion?
So my main interest with this one is that is to designate a year for it, not necessarily to put it in this year's budget. But right now, it's not in the budget, in the CIP at all.
Right. We did, would you like to make a motion for us to put it in the budget? I mean, we did discuss what year it might go in the budget. And I would say it's probably 2 years from now. That's what we talked about. Oh, we thought 2 years, and that was also thinking about the front loader, thinking that, or no, sorry, the front loader and the hook truck. We
Right.
looked at all three of those together. So,
I would, then I would move that this item be approved in the 2028 capital improvement plan.
okay.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on this? Yeah,
I'm not sure it would be a budget amendment for this year's budget. I think it would be to withdraw it.
Oh, aren't we approving the CIP?
Technically, I believe the resolution is to approve the capital improvement plan along with the specific borrowing for the 2026 capital plan. Is that correct, Bill?
Yeah, well, I mean, the resolution is to approve the 2028 through 2030 capital improvement program.
right.
All right.
I mean,
So we can do that.
The motion is in order.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, it is, to be
I think
clear,
we
that
could
those
do that.
expenditures are not approved, only the 2026 year is, but the rest of the plan, however, is, you know, those are placeholders until such time, this next year, council, we revisiting, again, the budget for the immediately following year, as usual.
Right, so the motion is to put it into the 28 budget, and we have a second. And by the way, just as it relates to this vehicle, one of the other things that we talked about internally is the fact that we have a bevy of vehicles at City Hall that are used on a very, very occasional basis. They're not trucks, they're SUVs, but like, for instance, there's an SUV that was bought when, I think April was city administrator, that has 15,000 miles on it because it doesn't get used. So, so it's just to say that if something were to happen to this truck, first of all, as we've talked about all along, if we need to amend the budget, we can do that. And, but second, it's not like Brad, who is the primary driver of this truck, wouldn't have any kind of transportation. Just want to assure people of that. Yep.
Yeah, I understand that Brad is out in the field quite a bit, and he's always hopping into a truck constantly. And he currently does have a designated truck, and it's kind of an old truck, right? I mean, is it just possible that there's a better truck that we already have that the poor guy can use? I mean, it's like he needs a truck, right? No? It just,
All the other trucks are spoken for in our department.
so they're designated to a person.
Well, crews, yeah, yeah.
Do we currently have, is there a general concern that there are too many vehicles in our fleet?
Yes.
Right.
We have in the past, for example, a lot of times, police department with their SUVs would get handed down to different groups. like that. So there's a lot of hand-me-downs that we do, so they change over every so often too.
2 of the 5 vehicles at City Hall parking lot are former police vehicles,
Like sedans,
SUVs.
SUVs, okay.
And just a reminder that the Colorado has 58,000 miles, and he only drives at 42 miles a month.
Okay.
So. I have a motion on the floor to move the Colorado to the 28 budget. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Bernstein.
Aye.
Alder Rademacher.
Aye.
Alder Holmquist.
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder Kugel.
Motion carries.
Public Works Loader's next, Mayor.
Sorry?
Public Works Loader's next.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's the only one left on my list here. So we're up to the front loader. Does anybody want to make a motion?
So, same thing on this one. Was concerned that it was taken out, but the year wasn't designated. So I will, again, make a similar motion to direct that it be in the 2027 capital improvement plan.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Sorry, roll call. We'll stick to the plan.
Alder,
Could you please call the roll, Eileen?
yeah. Alder Rademacher.
Aye.
Alder Holmquist.
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder Kugel. Alder Bernstein.
Aye. Agenda number 8
Motion carries.
for park trees.
Park trees, yes. The next one up is
Park trees.
park trees.
So this amendment does actually 2 things. It changes the funding source to geodebt rather than other revenue like donations. But it also reduces the total amount from 15 to 10 to take out the cost of tree removals, which should be an operating expense. So I will, if I didn't, I'll move approval.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor.
I'll second.
I've got a second from Rick. Mark, do you want to speak to this?
Yes, just for this one, we have basically, one, we have some carryover money. The two, I think, from the park trees that will be unspent. Two is, we have three separate park accounts that we kind of have, and Jake does have his park account set up, his donation accounts that he's been using. So they have well enough for that. And the other one is the DNR grant that we received probably 4 or 5 years ago, the 18,000 that we still haven't spent at all. So that's kind of where that money which is where it really would come from. Because we eventually need to start spending that money in that account.
So just as a point of information, we talked to Jake about this, and he said in his donated funds, he has definitely enough money for trees that have been donated for trees in park funds in his kitty, if you will, for donations in parks, to purchase as many trees as he can plant in '26. So in other words, he doesn't feel like he needs this funding. I'm just passing on the information.
Well, this is actually the one thing he pointed out to me that he did want changed, so. I can show you the text.
Jake.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
other discussion? Yeah.
yeah, so Alderwood, you're saying that can you explain the 5,000, 10,000 split again?
So originally it was 15,000, but after the discussion, I think last time, or committee of the whole, when it became clear that some of the money was being used to pay for the removal of trees, that's not a capital expense ordinarily. So that's why the 5 came out.
Right.
So the only question then is whether to use GO debt or not. And, I mean, if we have the so it's an urban forestry grant that we haven't spent?
Mm-hmm.
Correct, yeah. I mean, it's been sitting there for at least 4 years. We haven't really
Yeah.
spent much.
I mean, I would have a concern if we were taking donor money
Yeah,
and, people give money for the city to plant trees, so
Right,
we just sort of say, well, then we'll spend less on trees.
yeah.
right.
I wouldn't want to do that, but if we have urban forestry money, then.
Yeah, it's been sitting there. I mean,
Yeah.
it hasn't been moved, for, like I said, 3 or 4 years.
But correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty certain what we had talked about was that the urban forestry money of the 18 or 19 would actually replace the request that Dan made?
No, that's just other carryover money. So basically in that one, basically unspent tree money from the years before, it's just been sitting there.
So what you're saying is there's other funds available because we did, in the CIP, I thought that we had said we were going to use available funds from that 18 or 19,000 for Dan's trees, not Jake's. And you're saying,
That might
no,
be my
that's not
fault.
the
I
case.
was using it so if you look at the capital budget, we had carried over up to like 50 or some $1,000, and we haven't even spent any, hardly.
Okay,
anything.
okay.
So that, it's just basically carrying that over is what it is.
Okay, so we have enough money, is what you're saying,
We have enough
already
money
for both?
Dan's, yeah.
For
both.
Dan's and,
The urban grant.
and for Jake's with this other?
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
I would add that we probably want to make sure that we're spending that TNR money down.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing we're not supposed to be sitting on it, hanging on to it, so I'm guessing it probably needs to be expended, so.
okay.
You want to change your motion?
Yes, yeah, actually. I'll just withdraw that one, if that's okay with the.
Yeah,
So I would only then
5,000.
move approval of the amendment to reduce the amount to $10,000 and not change the funding source.
okay. I have a motion,
I'll second.
and I have a second. Any other discussion? Could you please call the roll? Sorry.
Alder Humquist.
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder Kugel. Alder Bernstein.
Aye.
Alder Rademacher.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Motion carries. That takes us to approving the.
We have library
sorry,
office.
we have-
The library one, I
lighting.
put that
One more,
underneath.
I forgot about the library.
I put that underneath your name because it's more of a technical amendment. Basically, what that is there was 4 rooms to do for the library, for the lights. It was broken up between two rooms. And they're doing 2 of the rooms this year, so we need to reduce it by the $9,000 that we're doing the rooms for this year, 2020, 25, so. So we'll have 2 rooms to do in 2026, but we're doing some of the rooms this year, 25, so that's just reducing it.
Okay, great. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
I'll
Do I have a second? I have a second. Any other discussion? Could you please call the roll?
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder Kugel. Alder Bernstein.
Aye.
Alder Rademacher.
Aye.
Alder Humquist.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now, I am looking for a motion to approve the CIP for 2026 as amended.
I
That
move
is-
to approve.
We already have that.
Oh, sorry, I thought we already, sorry.
Made it and Doug seconded.
Thank you.
Oh, right, yeah.
We already made it, sorry. So any other discussion on the larger motion as amended? Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I just want to say, despite having offered a bunch of amendments, I think this is a really pretty good budget. Good budget. I think we do need to look at how much we're borrowing. We've had a number of years in the last 7 or 8, 10, where we had double-digit increases in the debt service levy. So I just felt like maybe it was a little bit too abrupt of a drop, but I think it's something we need to not just look at this year, but in the future.
Yeah,
That's very thoughtful of you to say.
yeah. I am concerned about that larger number, and I know it didn't seem like,
What is the number, too? We need to get the number from Mark, sorry.
yeah, well, it puts it over 3 million again.
Yeah, so the
Which is
overall,
really a disappointment, but.
the overall
for me-
capital budget for 2025 went from $5,716,525 to $6,332,525. The general obligation portion, which is just the general only, went from $2,570,000 down to up to $3,156,000 or $3,156,700. So an increase to the general obligation of $656,000.
Which I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, but from my viewpoint, is a disappointment. Simply because, I was just gonna say that, I understand that when you look at the first screens we saw tonight, that the increase is $76 to $108 by adding this capital. Gosh, I mean, the average household taking another $770 hit. And I think we all know that our residents have already, not only approved a referendum, but have already taken substantial hits, and I, as I said in the very beginning, I'm concerned about our economy and the shape of our individual resident economies. So I obviously was hoping that it would be lower than that, but it is what it is, and I really appreciate all of the discussion and the deliberations.
I mean, at this point, we're still over about $300,000 below what the average has been over the last, like, dozen years. And quite a bit lower than the last 4 years. So,
Yep. Understand it. So I have a motion on the floor, and any other discussion? Okay. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Kugel.
Aye.
Alder Bernstein.
Aye.
Alder Rademacher.
Aye.
Alder Humquist.
Aye.
Alder Wood.
aye.
Before the staff goes, I just want to thank all the staff that are here tonight, again, for their really good work in putting together the budget, and for exercising the restraint that you did. And assuming that Ryan's going to walk out, I just, as well, along with everybody else, I just want to say, because I'm going to say it later too, but I want to say it to you personally. I just thought the November newsletter out of the library just like knocked it out of the park. And I was actually trying to pick up the newsletter to post on Facebook. I mean, the variety of activities just blew me away more so than any other month that I can remember, and I just wanted to say thank you to you and your staff.
Thank you, Mayor. I will pass that on to my staff.
And by the way, in case you didn't know, they wanted me to, I brought candy up tonight, and they said that they were gonna hide it, so you might wanna, from you. So-
They know me well.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
That takes us to G1D, consideration of resolution 25-10-2834, approving an agreement with Vanderwall and Associates for comprehensive planning and corridor planning from the city administrator.
Move approval.
I'll second.
I have approval in a second. Any other questions? Yeah, you want to go ahead?
If I could, just real quick.
Yep.
Staff realized we also need the budget amendment on for this item, which is actually under new business under 2A. So we would simply ask that this item be approved contingent upon approval of the budget amendment, just for purposes of order.
Thank you.
And we have not received any other questions on the contract as included in your packet at this point.
Do you need an adjustment to the motion?
Yes, sir, please, if we could.
So we'll make the adjustment that it would be a move of approval with contingency of a successful approval of item 2A.
I'll second.
Okay,
It's
a
gotta be the
motion
same
and a second.
second.
Nope.
Yep, thank you.
You got a second? All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. That takes us to new business. First one up is 2A, consideration of resolution 25-11-2842, amending the 2025 operating budget for comprehensive planning consulting services. Immediate action required. I have a motion to take this, suspend the rules and take it out of order.
I'll move that we suspend the rules, take it out of order.
I have a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Move approval? Oh, sorry.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Sorry, I just wanted to know why it needed to be.
Simply because of the contract being approved, we can't approve the contract without the budget amendment. Also, we're asking to make sure that if they could just be both done tonight. It'll also allow us to go ahead and get the planning process started here this month in November.
Got you, sorry.
No problem. Good question. Thank you.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
We already did that, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I thought we
I just was
suspended the
like-
rules.
No, I know, we did the move for approval first, and then,
Okay. So it's already approved.
What you need?
I thought so.
I don't think we,
No.
I have a
Yeah.
motion by Brian, seconded by Alder Kugel to suspend the rules.
Yep.
okay.
But we
Now-
haven't
So then we'll move
approved the
approval.
agreement.
There we go.
So
Yep.
we need a
Yes.
motion to approve the agreement.
So I'll move the approval.
Do I have a second?
It's
All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, motion carries.
Thank you, everyone.
So you'll note here that there are now, 4 items that are started for immediate action, and I know that this is something that this body cares about, so I'm going to ask.
Yeah, I can explain them.
Yeah,
Why?
if you could explain them writ large, maybe. Thank you, Doug.
For the 3 borrowings, why I'm asking this for, take it out of order, this is common, what we do every time we do the borrowing, so there's 2 steps. One is the authorization, this is just authorizing our bond council to start the process to borrow the money. So this is saying, okay, there's 3 of them coming up, this dollar amount, this is okay, and we want them to start the process. This is what, so it's basically kind of 2, the way I look at it, even though you're proving it twice, because you're going to prove it next meeting too. But this is just authorizing our bond counsel to go out, or financial advisor to go out to the bond market.
Okay. That makes sense?
We've been doing it since that one, probably since I've been here, 20 years.
Do you want, yeah, well, let's just go to item number B, and then if people want more of an explanation, they can get that. Consideration of resolution 25-11-2838, amending 2025 capital budget for Wisconsin Emergency Management State and Local Cybersecurity Grant, put forth by the Director of Administrative Services, and I hope Leah is not still on.
She is still on, actually.
She is?
Yes, she is.
Lordy.
This
Leah.
This one
Thank you, Mayor
otherwise
Moore.
taken out of order. So.
I cannot believe you're still on, although I know you watch them at home. So little known secret, no longer a secret. So go ahead.
I'll try and make it quick. You all have had a long night. We are IT consultant, Land Tech, applied for and received a $29,150 cybersecurity grant, specifically for multi-factor authentication. And while this is a cost-neutral grant, it's a 100% grant with no match. We do have to purchase the equipment and spend the money and then get reimbursement. So the purpose of this budget amendment is asking to temporarily borrow the $29,000 from the fund balance and then replenish it when we receive the grant reimbursement.
Yes.
And
Neil?
just in terms of demand, and Director Kimmel can correct me if I'm wrong on this, we have seen a substantial increase in security risks in our system as of late. If folks remember when you couldn't get into your email perhaps about a week or so ago, that was because there was an emergency shutdown essentially of access to and protect against an attack that we were kind of in the midst of defending. So kudos to our IT consultants who have been on top of those. But this is simply kind of accelerating. Those attacks are accelerating the need. Certainly the timing of this grant is right on the money in terms of just getting these 2-factor authentication in place. It's a mild inconvenience for staff and everyone, and you and all those at the table here to ensure that extra level of protection do not allow access to our system. So.
And very specifically, this 2-factor authentication would be to lock down our city servers so that everyone who wants to access a city server will need to authenticate, as well as our payroll and accounting software. And we're talking about our website as well.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yeah.
I just have a question. What sort of cybersecurity training do city staff receive? I know as alders, we don't receive any. We use city laptops. We access city services. The weakest link is always the human being. It really is when it comes to IT security. So I just don't know if there is some thought or consideration, maybe just put that out there that we might want to think about that in the future.
Alder Rademacher, we do, our IT consultants do have a software program that they have instituted
where they will send out targeted fake attacks
Yeah.
to employees, and then for any employees who click on them, it sort of gives them some training and some, here's why you shouldn't have clicked on this kind of situation.
Yeah.
And I know that they are looking to sort of switch that training provider for next year and ramp it up a little more even.
That's great.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also, Alder, we are looking at, Director Kimmel's looking at adding some policy management software that will actually allow us to roll out specific training efforts and actually require you to saying, yes, I completed this, I acknowledge and read this training. And
Yeah.
so we'll have a little bit more formal, and it pretty much won't let you go any further until you've gone through and actually read and done the conducted the
That's-
training. So, and I think that would certainly be available for alders as well as we do
That sounds
those
similar
things,
to
so.
what we do at my office. We have to take every year, we have to, maybe even more frequently, have to go through a course. Yeah, it's great.
But it's a great point, and it will certainly, and just to share regular information, we're looking at kind of rolling that. I believe, again, Jaren, our consultant, has some resources that we can start sharing kind of on a regular basis, so.
Okay.
I'll move that we suspend the rules, take this item out of order.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve it.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on this item? Okay, that being the case, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So this takes us to, again, the three different bond issues that Mark will go through. Item number C is consideration of resolution 25-11-2839, providing for the sale of $3.9 million general obligation refunding bond series 2025B from the finance director. And I need a motion to take this out of order.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and we'll let Mark go ahead.
Yeah, so this is so back in 2021, we bought the property, San Damiano. We had, it was a quick turnaround, so we had to take a short-term note to complete the process. Now the note is coming due. It comes due in early 2026. So we have to refinance this to a long-term note. We are using money that we received from Dane County to reduce the balance. So the amount outstanding would be $3.9 million. Rates are a little higher right now, so there is a call date in there, which means they eventually the rates will come down. If need to, we can get in there and we can refinance it to a lower rate if necessary. If necessary. The current P&I right now we're paying is roughly $324,000. With the estimated P&I schedule, principal and interest schedule, is going to be right around the $324,000. So as far as the year-to-year borrowing, there will be no effect. An increase will be still flat. I mean, the same as it was last year. So that way, it's kind of nice. You won't see an increase or decrease to the principal and interest payments for that. So this is just short-term note is coming due, and we have to refinance it.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Yep.
Doug?
So we initially borrowed 8.5, and the balance now is 5.9. So we paid off 2.6.
Yeah, and then, yes. So
Okay, seems like a lot.
it is a lot, but.
I mean, it seems like an faster pace than what we're doing now.
Yes, we were,
Okay, so I just want to make sure
yeah,
that the 2 million that we got from the county, we haven't taken that out yet.
correct.
Okay, good.
Any other questions? Yeah,
Move to approve.
motion approved. Second?
I'll second.
And I've got a second from Rick. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That takes us to D, consideration of resolution 25-11-2840, providing for the sale of 1.55 million taxable general obligation refunding bond series 2025C from the finance director as well. Can I have a motion to suspend the rules and take this out of order?
I'll move to suspend the rules and take it out for order.
And I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Mark?
So this one's a little bit different. The payment is not coming due, but this is more of a strategy issue. So right now, TIF 8, which I don't know if people know, TIF 8 is, I call it Trasta, the old mobile home. They're a donor district to TIF 9. It has been for the last 5 years. This year will be the 6th year. You only donate for 10 years. So we've been donating a lot to TIF 9. But now recently our principal and interest payments for TIF 8 have increased in this loan. And so the next 4 years, the total amount we would donate is only $215,000. So we're kind of looking for a strategy to get more money into TIF 9, just because TIF 9, I don't know if everybody knows, we bought basically the whole properties there in TIF 9. And so it's a higher debt TIF, but it will, regardless of that, it's still gonna pay itself off. But this is getting more money into TIF 9 quicker, and we have some larger payments coming due in TIF 9. So if we refinance this as a kind of a strategy here, instead of the $215,000, we can get over $1.5 million into TIF 9 quicker. It does extend the payments out from 29 to 2033. Another strategy also with that, even we get to 2033, even with the refinance, and if you look at the life of the loan, it goes up to 2039. This TIF will still generate up to $3.9 million with this, even with this refinance in the donor district, or $3.7 million. So there's some things when we start talking about the long-term stuff that I kind of talked about during the capital improvement plans. This is one of the things I'm looking at. We'll have $3.7 million kind of to work with if we want to, and kind of use that to pay for a Broadway Street project that's coming up. There's also a large interlake stormwater project that's coming up. We can delay it back to 2029. That is all allowable TIF costs. So I think this is a good strategy to get the more money into TIF 9 to get that paid off sooner. And there's also a thing with, as soon as the debt is paid off, you're really supposed to close the TIF too. And this allows us to keep that TIF open, so we're allowed to start to use that money for these larger capital projects that are coming from 2030 on, a little bit to pay for those projects. So that's all.
Questions? I'll take a motion.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any other discussion? Those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. That takes us to consideration of resolution 25-11-2841, providing for the sale of 2.95 million water system and sewer system revenue refunding bond series 2025D. I'll take a motion to suspend the rules and take this out of order.
I'll second.
And I have a second. Go ahead, Mark. Oh, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mark.
So this is kind of like the first one again. So we have two basically short-term notes, one in 2021, 2024. We kind of planned both of those to be paid, to be required to be refinanced by February 1st, 2026, so which is coming up here fairly quick. So these utilities they're a little tricky because there's these revenue bonds, there's a lot of requirements, and trying to fit it into the repayment schedule so you're not increasing your rates. Even though with their ban, you still can start paying principal and interest, which we are doing. But put them in bans are not subject to these revenue requirements at the time. So it's kind of, at the time, the 2021 and 24, we are making principal and interest that are not subject to these revenue requirements. Now we're able to fit into a good repayment schedule, so there's not effect on the rates as what they would be if we would just done them as notes at the time. And plus, revenue bonds, when they go to the market, they like larger dollar amounts, so these small little ones, you don't get a lot of people bidding on them, so you pay a little bit higher interest rates. We get the larger wrapped in long-term notes. If there's $3 million, you get better people at the market for that to help with the interest rates. But again, it does come due February 1st here, 2026. We need to refinance it. One thing, so with the approval of the 2000, with the capital budget tonight, the water utility, I don't think there's any sewer utility. We would add in, the next time we come here, add in what we approved tonight in the 2026 capital budget. So it's part of, we'll make a larger revenue bond instead of having to do 26, it's just another short-term note. This will wrap this whole 26 capital budget into this revenue bond and make it a bigger note and have it issued over long term. So this number, when I come back to the next meeting, will include what we're we'll include, I don't know what the number is, whatever the number is for water in this number. So 2.9 plus the 2026 water number. So that'll be your final number at the next meeting.
Thank you. Any questions for Mark? Okay. All those in favor? Oh, sorry. Judy, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move approval.
Do I have a second? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion approves. Thank you,
And just so
Mark.
you know, next meeting, our bond person will be here going over all this stuff with the rates.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, that takes us to F, consideration of resolution 25-11-2843, adopting future compensation increases for the mayor and city council members of the city of Monona, put forth by the city administrator.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to put this as something I believe has been reviewed since 2015. Mayor and I actually did some surveying here of other cities here in Dane County. Found we were certainly below the average of what other communities have been, certainly in taking into consideration the amount of hours and time that alders in Monona and the mayor do put in, certainly not only in meetings such as this, but outside of meeting hours as well. So based on the results of those survey, the initial survey, which is included in your packet, this was done to the Dane County Cities and Villages Association that provided us with this information. Simply looking to increase, essentially, I believe, Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, but the proposed increases are still slightly below the average
Right.
for Dane County.
Correct.
But are significant increases, at least to what is, again, in proportion to what times we feel alders are being put in. So in order to stay competitive, 2 points, obviously, the salary is important to make sure you continue to get people interested in running. And that are certainly not only to compensate for their time, but it is also something that we just want to make sure that we are, we are remaining competitive in that regard as well. So if anyone has any questions, or happy to answer.
Yeah, so let me just add a couple of things here. One is I tried somewhat in vain to get additional information from other mayors, the mayors from the cities that are listed here, around their estimates of time, among other things, from their alders to try to get closer to comparing apples to apples. Because one of the things that we're aware of is that alders here in Monona chair or co-chair 4 committees, and that's not always the case in the other locales. On the other hand, we know that places like Madison, and not to mention the fact that in other places, alders can represent a district rather than the whole city, where we're all at large. So I did get specific estimates from Madison, which were, as you might imagine, way more hours for each person. It's a different structure, but certainly a different structure, but their estimates were a lot higher, but it wasn't as successful as I had hoped in comparing apples to apples. But it's safe to say that just judging from the mayor's reaction and the discussion around it, that when I told them that our alders chair, co-chair for committees, they were fairly surprised. So that's number one. Number two, these funds, if approved, these funds will be obviously in this year's operating budget for 26, but it's also already in the 25 operating budget, because at the time it was Mayor Mary O'Connor's intent to have done this when she was still mayor, and we ended up putting it in the budget without approving, for the same amount, without approving it, because it's important that we get it approved, if we're gonna do it, if we get it, that we get it approved before packets are available on December 1 for the next election. In other words, this doesn't apply to any of us, it only applies to newly elected people, right? The third thing is that one of the things that I debated about and we discussed internally was the notion of, in an effort to not have to do this all the time, just keep pace, the notion of potentially adding a CPI component to this,
And
so
we did
that it would
confirm
be.
that we are not allowed to do that, Mayor. Statute does not allow us to do that.
Really? That's interesting,
There you go.
because that's what Satya said they're doing. Sorry, I shouldn't say that.
Yeah, unless they're taking action on it every single year.
Hmm.
You can't have it can't be a flat automatic rate going forward.
Okay.
City clerk identified the statute reference after the
Thank you,
meeting.
city clerk, that's you, yeah. Interesting. All right, well, scrap that idea. We'll just have to take it up more often, I guess.
Exactly, that would be the result.
Again, this is a first read, but if anybody has any questions now or over the next couple of weeks, feel free to reach out.
We said, did we actually see what the amounts were specifically, Mayor, in case anyone was asking?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're stated in the resolution.
Yep.
Mayor, if I could,
Yeah.
it's probably worth noting for the public, to the extent anybody's watching or will watch the video of this, that notwithstanding the budgeting of this amount, if it were to pass, none of it would take effect during the term of any of the alders or the current mayor.
Correct.
So no one voting on this would benefit from this increase unless they stood for reelection and were in fact reelected.
Okay. And then finally, item G, consideration of ordinance 1125-799. Excuse me, amending section 1816 of the Monona Code of Ordinances to rename the Distinguished Service Award Committee to, and revise its function, put forth by me. So, excuse me, as some of you may recall, from your length of service, there has been a Distinguished Service Award Committee operating the city for quite some time, that did operate in the city for quite some time, where there was a dinner, an annual awards dinner that was held, and individuals were chosen in part due to length of service, but also the impacts that was put forth by them in that length of service over a period of time. And it was generally intended to be a acknowledgement of the volunteers that serve on boards, committees, and commissions as well. For a variety of reasons, Mayor Mary O'Connor stopped doing it. We never really discussed it in council that I can recall. It just, we sort of stopped. And I feel pretty strongly that we should be acknowledging and celebrating all the people that serve on our committees. And so, and that we need to reimagine this event. I think part of the reason why it was stopped, as I, having spoken to Mary, part of the reason why it was stopped is that they didn't get very good attendance. So I just thought it was, as I said, I feel strongly that we need to acknowledge and celebrate. It's over 100 people that serve on our commissions, committees, and boards. And so the attempt here is to, or my wish here is to reimagine it. Not just call it an award, but really reimagine it and reimagine an event that could be hopefully fun and celebratory and people would want to attend. So, again, available for questions now or over the next couple of weeks. That takes us to H, reports of committees, commissions, boards, mayor, city administrator, city attorney, department managers, sustainability efforts, and diversity, equity, inclusion efforts. Let's start down at Rick.
Lions Club gave a bench to the Parks Department. They're going to put it in their pool area. These were the bench from the ladies who were collecting all that plastic film. So they reached 1,000 pounds and they get a bench. So
That's
Jake
great.
was thrilled and he's looking forward to getting more. I think the Lions Club will continue this for the following year.
That's great.
And that's it.
Teresa?
I have no report, but I'm still waiting on some statistics from transit, so we can have some good presentation of data when I get those in.
Okay, great. Thank you. Brian?
No report tonight.
Rachel?
Parks Committee met since last time. I was not able to attend that meeting, but I did meet up with Jake afterwards. Just walked through Ahuska Park and future plans for there, which will be coming forward at some point.
Was, since it was on the agenda, do you want to share with the community what the future plans? Right? Wasn't it on the agenda?
Oh,
There's been a sign put up, yes?
Yes, about the dog park?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so it was discussion of moving the dog park from its current location to a location at Ahuska, to make room at the current dog park location for a Parks and Rec storage facility that was originally planned at Ahuska, but now would be more expensive to build at Ahuska than at the current dog park location. And then also just talk through kind of where the new billboard is going. They've started taking down trees and kind of mapping it out. So if you drive by, you can see some things changing.
With the permit from DOT, we're pleased to report, so.
As planned, right? Right, thanks. Doug?
MPO meets on Wednesday night, and the other thing I wanted to call people's attention to is next Tuesday, November 11th, there will be an informational meeting about the Frostwoods Historic District that'll be conducted by the State Historical Society. It'll be at the Community Center from 6 to 8.
Thank you.
And then the review board at the State Historical Society reviews the district that Friday.
Okay.
No report.
Actually, I'm going to report on your behalf that we do not have an election tomorrow.
Yes, we do not.
What?
That we do not. Good call.
Right, and I mention that because, believe it or not, I've had a half a dozen people call me who typically would call me and say, what do I vote for, or what's on the ballot? Not knowing that we just don't have an election, since it's very unusual to not have one. So,
Wayne is very disappointed too.
yeah. Right. Yeah. So, just for those people that might be confused, since there are elections happening elsewhere, other states, yes. Neil?
I actually have a whole bunch of stuff, but I'm going to rattle through it really fast, I promise. So, Chief reminded me to let folks know Madison Marathon is this Sunday. So we will have some extra running traffic coming through town on Sunday morning. There may or may not be a lane closed on Monona Drive for a while on doing that, and I think we did put some temporary no parking up on Winnequa to help facilitate that just for safety reasons. So a couple of different initiatives this year, but just kind of be, keep an eye on that. So yeah, Winnequa and Toniawatha for sure will be impacted. The good news is, the way the route is going, they're actually finishing, we're towards the end of the race, so they'll be more spread out and won't be a great big clump of runners like at the beginning, like at the start of the race. So the way the route is going, it's actually going to be minimized some of that traffic. So we will be having committee of the whole operating budget next Wednesday and Thursday. So in case you guys were bored and not already wanting that, we're on to the next phase, obviously, to continue that. So we'll be sending out some additional details on that. We also are looking at, subject to the mayor giving us the green light, maybe doing a kind of a future capital planning workshop, maybe in February sometime. Staff would like us to kind of focus on those later years, maybe even extend that out to 10 years rather than just 5, knowing the number of things we have to look at. So probably to try to do something similar as you have done with the regular committee of the whole for all those other aspects. We have a Smart Growth Greater Madison is a development group in the Madison area. They're actually meeting here in Monona on Wednesday afternoon. So that to be at, I don't remember, Mayor, anything remember where they're meeting at? I can't recall. Look, anyone interested in stopping in, let me know. They've got a couple of attendees. So it'll just be Doug Plowman providing a development overview on what's kind of going on, talk about our comprehensive plan update, talk about Renew Monona, just kind of some of those variety of programs we've got going on.
Breakwater.
Breakwater, thank you, Mayor. That's where it's at. We did have, staff did have a good conversation today with Dane County and City of Madison regarding the Broadway improvement project. A lot of grant project aspects of that had dramatically increased in cost without the city's knowledge. So essentially a lot of things had been put forward. It's one of those projects where we have a percentage share of the project. The county and or City of Madison kind of increased that overall cost of the project really without consulting the city. So we've kind of put that a little bit on ice and going to be working with them now through early next year to kind of revisit the scope and really take a good look at that. It's also good timing because we're obviously starting our comprehensive plan. We are looking at doing an actual corridor study there. So we'll actually be able to give them really kind of hard data on projected land uses and kind of project some traffic a little bit better than they had. So certainly going to try to keep that competitive. The MPO staff was on the line as well, so they're aware of the ongoing discussions, and we'll hope to keep them meeting. We're meeting as part of the Dane County Urban Consortium on this Thursday morning. That's just the Dane County CDBG program, essentially. So all the communities just kind of getting together to talk about the status of the program and some successes that they've kind of been seeing and where to go from there. Special thanks to Alder Bernstein and the mayor. Folks have been through City Hall or the library or the senior center. You've seen the barrel there to help donate to the food pantry. Obviously dealing with the ramifications of our federal government being in their inability to advance any initiatives in affecting the SNAP program. So encourage people to certainly, this is in partnership with St. Stephen's. So this is getting them some additional food and resources. We can do that. So certainly feel free to bring some non-perishables to City Hall or any of the other locations. And if you have specific questions, there's other things. You can actually donate things like frozen foods and things, but you got to do that at St. Stephen's. We don't have the freezer capability here to do that. So if you have questions, certainly send an email to me or contact St. Stephen's. And then just not, well, no, we have 2 barrels out actually in City Hall. The police department is working their annual partnership with Toys for Tots with the Marine Corps. So that barrel is also sitting out in City Hall right now. So if you have anything you're able to donate and put in, we encourage you to do so.
The barrels can also be used for warm clothing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Alder. And I guess just one note, looking at Alder Holmquist, Plan Commission's rescheduled to Tuesday.
Correct.
Next week, simply because a certain football team north of here is playing on Monday Night Football. So wouldn't worry about attendance. So we actually moved the meeting to Tuesday night to making sure we actually have a quorum, so.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully they have
That's my report.
better play calling
Okay.
and we'll be all right.
Bill?
Just briefly, I had previously reported to you that Walmart and Walgreens had filed the paperwork to challenge their property tax assessment. That was to go to board review. They asked that it be waived and go directly to circuit court due to the legal issues involved. I consented to that waiver. They have now in fact filed their lawsuits. They have done so in previous years as well. So these will be aggregated with those prior suits. They're all stayed right now pending a couple decisions by the Court of Appeals that will impact our cases. So they are filed but stayed at this point. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a few things. First of all, you may have seen on social media that the school district did a bit of a workshop last week, at which time the superintendent of schools proposed selling Maywood School and Nichols, and moving the district offices to Cottage Grove and MG21 to Cottage Grove as well. Just want you all to know that we are in communication with both the superintendent in fact, we have a meeting with her this week, and I also have a meeting with Elizabeth Cook at the end of the week. So we're on top of it, in communication with them. Don't have any idea at this point where it's going to go. I'm sure there are mixed feelings here in Monona. And it was just a workshop. It wasn't a board, meeting or board decision. So, but it's out there in social media, so you may hear about it. Also wanted to remind people that there is a public information meeting on the Tony Watha, big Tony Watha project that is happening in 26, and that's at 6 p.m. on Wednesday at the community center. So anybody who's in the Arrowhead, Tony Watha section of town, I'd strongly encourage to attend and learn more about that project and what it's going to entail. It's a biggie. Like I said, it's one of the bigger projects we've done because it involves a total rebuild of the road, including, or roads, I should say plural, including all the water mains. And last, I earlier gave a shout out to the library. I would encourage, for those of you that may not have read the full newsletter, I was just, like I said, I know it happens every month. I know our library does a great job, but for whatever reason, I was particularly struck. Maybe they increased the number of events or the variety of events because we're getting into winter. I don't know, but I was particularly struck by the variety and the quality of the events in the newsletter. It was just packed full of stuff, full of really good stuff, and I really appreciate it. And one of the very first things was the opportunity for everybody to get their Butterburgers, because there's a fundraiser by the Friends of the Library on the 18th from 5 to 8 p.m., and you don't need a coupon or a secret password or anything. You just go to Culver's on Cottage Grove, and the proceeds, money goes back to the Friends of the Library. So I think that's it. With that, there are 2 appointments on the agenda this evening. Those 2 appointments being myself and Alder Teresa Rademacher for Renew the Blue Council. For those of you that, it's a small refresher, the Clean Lakes Alliance has formed and reformed what's called the Renew the Blue Council, which is basically organization and municipal delegates that get together once a quarter to hopefully have very concrete ways to move the health of our lakes forward. And they needed 2 people from Monona, and they asked that that one of the 2 at least be a decision maker. And of course, it's very much tied to sustainability. So the 2 of us, I'd like a motion to approve. The move approval.
Second.
And I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That is approved. With that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
I have a second and a motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you again.